All right, we are live, and I'm coming at you with five. And if you know you're here, and this is the place to be, of course, it is with me on channel G Boot 2786. I'm Gavin Richard, and welcome to Gavin Richard Presents. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. If you are watching, of course, we just turned it on, but we'll have some people coming in. If you're watching on Periscope, if you're watching, which is on Twitter at GavinRich2786, or my self-entitled YouTube channel, Gavin Richard, or even on Facebook, Gavin Richard. I thank you for tuning in, whoever you are, wherever you are. I hope you are blessed and doing safe, and also staying warm with all of the winter storms that we have been facing with here in Louisiana. We actually it's been extremely cold, even in New Orleans and different areas of Louisiana. They are experiencing ice and snow, sleet. We've also had
Wow.
power outages, and I'm going to talk about that too in a minute, of course. But I want to welcome our guest. Uh, he has been a guest to this channel. This is his third time appearing, and I'm always happy to have him come on. Pastor Clenard, Dr. Clenard Childress Jr. Y'all say hello to him, chat. Pastor, thank you for tuning in.
Appreciate being here
And of
always.
course, all right. And of course, we have the author of The Man Crisis, the author of the John Haynes series, The Man with Nothing to Lose. He has several other books that have debuted, including Eternal Night, and he's also has another. When does Sean not have any books coming out? Sean's written about almost 80. Sean has about 80 books that he has written so far, if I'm not mistaken. So but it's always a pleasure to see him come on because I love promoting his stuff and I love having him his input. Shawn James, Sean, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here, brother.
I'm glad to be here.
Bless you.
That's good. I think we have a little bit of a delay. I don't know what's going on with it because I can see Pastor, you've gone in and out a little bit. It looks like I'm going out in and out a little bit, but if you guys can hear me, apparently, if there's a delay, we're doing fine. Far side says good evening. So let's get into it. Of course, we're going to talk about. We were just talking earlier about before we went live about what happened with Andrew Cuomo, this COVID-19 controversy and that he has going on up there. But first, I want to get into this while this happened over the weekend. Of course, on Saturday, uh, Donald Trump is the first and only president as of now to be impeached twice, but he also has another distinction. He is the first president also to be impeached twice, but also be acquitted twice. No president, right? No president has actually been convicted, even though they have been impeached. There have only been three. Donald Trump being one, the other one being Bill Clinton, and the other one before that would have been Andrew Johnson. And says here he was included in impeachment. I of course even before the impeachment started, there were talks, according to the Associated Press, that they did not have the requisite number of votes through the impeachment. Of course, this was concerning his acquittal more than a month after the the January 6th invasion, where they talked about people that actually broke into the Capitol on that January 6th while they were certifying the Electoral College votes. And numerous people were arrested and so forth. And they, of course, tried to blame Donald Trump for this insurrection. Of course, he was acquitted. As I said, they did not have the two-thirds majority that is needed. And frankly, whether you like Donald Trump or not, my thoughts was that he was not going to get convicted, and I thought it would be a waste of time to even do it, especially with he's out of office. And by letter of the law being an attorney, I just know law that they did not have enough to convict him on that. And they actually showed what was interesting. They actually compared that with some statements that were made by Democratic leaders as well, where they have said the same thing. See, I don't like, I'm not on the side, so I'm not on the side of the Democrat, but I like fairness and I call things the way that I see it. So Reverend, I'm gonna let you start with the first word on it.
Well, you said that they said the same things. No, they didn't. They said what they said was hatred. Get in their face. Tell them go. You see them in a restaurant. Donald Trump said nothing like that. Not even close. But the hatred for this man is profound. I've never seen any, closing in on 7.
He was running when he was running for president about just beat the crap out of him.
Oh, okay. Those were, but that didn't cause a. We were, first of all, you could not use those comments in reference to that particular incident. And needless to say, we're going to talk about stuff that he said. He's condemned already. But as far as the incident, as far as the incident was concerned, you're a lawyer, and assessing it, it was absurd. It was absolutely absurd, especially when the event itself started prior to him finishing even talking. So, and they knew this. I mean, we got to come to a point where it's not about party at all. It's about objectively looking at the facts and looking at what basically the motivation for the charges. It was the vitriol. They attempted to, so he doesn't run twice. He is the party. It's the way it's evolved. And I want to go. Donald Trump will have 2 terms. Now, I know people think the incident with the fraud, the major fraud, is over and past. I'm not going to go. It's not. Okay, what's going on in Georgia? I'm sorry, Arizona, as I speak, right, is going to be condemning. It's going to be the domino effect. There is no way Justice Alito in Pennsylvania, which I believe is going to be heard tomorrow. Am I right about there's cases, something is going on tomorrow? But whether it's tomorrow or next month, Justice Alito has lost all credibility. And it is tomorrow? Okay, but Justice Alito.
I don't know about it.
Okay, but I think there's 5 cases, not tomorrow, but there's 5 cases still with the opportunity to be heard. Justice Alito loses all credibility if he does not penalize Pennsylvania, take those votes away, and go with the total on November 3rd. They totally dissed him. So I'm not going to go into all of the other states where there's things where legislatures are finally standing up. If you saw the Mike Lindell piece, absolute proof, I'll send it to you if you don't have it. Sit down and look at this. But I'll say this. Yes, he'll have 2 terms. What if Donald Trump is a little crazy. You know that, right? So what if he runs for Congress in 2 years? He'd win. What after 2 years, then he runs for president? He'd win. This is not over. It's not over by a long shot. And the sole reason, especially as far as the pinnacle of my heart's desires, what I want to see happening, Biden has proven himself by these executive orders to be anti-American, anti-life, anti-everything basically I stand for. So we're at a very critical point right now. He has the upper hand considering the position that he's in. He's an ex-president. He's not going to let it go. Everybody should know that. If I were him, I'd run for Congress. And then after running for Congress, I'd run for president. Because it's not really so much about with him being president. It's about his agenda returning to the public square and to America. And God bless you, Gordon, but he is far from done. He is far from done.
let me just ask you guys because it looks like I'm having a little technical issues. You all seeing me? Or am I lagging, or is there a delay? Are you guys having an issue on your side?
Can't really hear you.
Okay, you can't hear me. All right.
No, you have to
Let
turn
me.
your volume up.
Well, that's the thing. My volume is up. Let me see here.
I can hear you. You just lag at certain times. I believe I am also. So.
The volume's really low on my end.
And
All
you're
right.
really, and James is really high. He's good.
I
You know,
can
so.
hear James. I can hear him. I think it may be an issue with him hearing me, right, Shawn?
Yeah, I can't hear you. That's the whole thing.
You just heard me there. But okay. Let me try. Okay, this is what I'm gonna try and do. Let me see. Let me try and come back in. Let me see. I'm gonna try and come back in because they do this sometimes. One of the issues too I've noticed is there's a censorship issue. Uh, let's see. New Calvary says she can't hear me. Hear Brother Gavin well either. All right. Let me see what I could do. Let me come back. All right. How's that?
All right, it's a little better.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I got to move the microphone. I'm working. I'm right here, so there's no issue. All right, but that sounds much better.
Yeah.
Sounds much better. Little lag there when you move the mic.
All right.
Mhm.
Okay, if it gets bad, I'm gonna just go and move into another room, and I'll just speak from another speaker from my headphones. All this money you spend on, and you think this stuff will work properly. Shawn, what are your thoughts? Let's get Shawn. Shawn, what are your take on the acquittal of and the impeachment process that happened?
Well, this was not a surprise for me because clearly the Democrats did not have the votes to get a conviction against your Donald Trump. They just did not have the support in the Senate from Senate Republicans to get that 2/3 majority. And what they were trying to do was basically they were so caught up in their feelings and what I call the Trump obsession. They wanted to try to get even with Donald Trump at any cost. This was all about really getting it where Donald Trump wouldn't be able to run for office again in 2024 or be able to challenge any sort of Democratic challenger because they really have a weak candidate in Joe Biden and an even weaker candidate in Kamala Harris. And they know if they put Harris against Trump in 2024 and he starts to debate with her, she's going to get torn to pieces and they don't have a leg to stand on. So they basically, with this impeachment, it really wasn't about the insurrection. It was about getting rid of Donald Trump and making it where he could not run again. And they failed miserably on that part because they practically brought this impeachment up on a motion and not on anything as related to anything related to law. Now, if they really wanted to go after Donald Trump, you'd think they would try him for sedition, which would be the law to try him in federal court. But they didn't go and try him for sedition. They tried to impeach him for a second time. And again, that came from a perspective of emotion, not really critical thinking as related to law.
Right, most definitely. I mean, I knew from the beginning they did not have, first off, not only enough votes to do this by law, but when you're talking about inciting a riot or felony, there is something that is in the Constitution. It's the First Amendment. It's called freedom of speech. And you cannot, while there are laws that obviously on the books about inciting a riot, you would have to prove the causal link between what one says with the actions of the other. Obviously, when you talk about inciting a riot, for instance, I mean, we have laws that are against solicitation for murder, where someone entices another person to kill another if they try to procure their services with something of value, things of that nature, murder for hire. Well, people can say and do, say things. It's one thing that they, can say things and so forth. And yes, there are laws on the books, for instance, that prevent you from saying fire in a movie theater. I did not see, and I'm being fair as a lawyer because I'm all, about fairness, whether I like a person politically or not. I just didn't see what they were trying to charge him with. And I felt myself that it was more along the lines about just trying to make sure that, and truthfulness, not even inside the riot aspect, because we saw from the video footage that those people were let in, those that were able to come in. I mean, the gates were open. I saw them opening it. So what I saw, essentially, what this was about was a way to keep him from running from office again. I think he certainly, especially if he has 75 million votes for the presidency, if he decides to run again, and supposedly I've heard of him creating a new party, the Patriot Party or whatever. He very well could be, because in truthfulness, Donald Trump is not a Republican. He's actually independent or populist, as as Brother Bernard says. There was a time when he was a Democrat. There was a time when he was a Republican. There was a time he was an independent. So he really is a independent candidate. And he's, and in regards to Biden, and I was going to address that a little bit later, but I mean, in his first month, Biden has signed more executive orders
than any other president.
2 weeks. Well, the only other president who would sign more was FDR in the first 2 weeks.
I didn't know that. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, over 30. FDR had about 31 executive orders, but Biden has had 28 in 2 weeks. And when you look at them, and I guess I could talk about this now. Of course, one of the main things, and Shawn has talked about this, I believe, but this transgender bills that he has passed. He has also passed executive orders for illegal immigrants, for them on a path to get them amnesty. I wonder, where's the executive orders for Black folk? I hear, you got one for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders.
Well, you won't have it from Joe Biden. But go ahead.
No, but what's funny, I'm mentioning all of this because your friend Roland Martin made a comment on his talk show stating that they cannot go ahead and give things to Black people. This was his words, because they can't. They literally can't. They can get around that. They did the LGBTQ. I'm doing Roland. The LGBTQ, because there's Black LGBTQ, there's white LGBTQ, and that is patently false. What he says is an outright lie, because there are laws on the books right now that go to goes to Indian reservations, that caters to Native American. I just saw, as a matter of fact, when Joe Biden, and I guess this is proof that he's getting, it's not up there. When he was vice president under Barack Obama, they approved almost $500 million or more to different Native American tribes.
Yes.
Let's not forget also, reparations has been given to Japanese Americans, or two that were put in internment camps. So monies is being allocated now because from American companies to even Israel, because of the Holocaust situation, because there were some Americans here who financed or were involved in one way, shape, or form with Nazi Germany. It's John Kerry, who was Secretary of State under Joe Biden, under Barack Obama, I believe was actually responsible for that deal. So they can do that if they want. So when I'm looking at these executive orders, I just see that you are not the priority. Our people have not been the priority by this government and under this administration. And someone pointed this out to me. I want to show you guys this. I don't know if you've seen this circulating, but this was it's old, but it was brought to my attention. This was from Okay, let me share it with you. But I put this up. Someone shared this, was sharing this around. I didn't even, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It is from 2013, I believe, or 2012. Real Sports with Brian Gumbel did this. But this person, this was Gabrielle, he calls himself Gabrielle Ludwig. He was born Robert John Ludwig. And he has a son, two marriages. He's an ex-Navy veteran, but at 50 years old, he he went into college, or she went into college basketball for Santa Clara, California.
Mm-hmm.
And these girls have got to be what, 5'6" at or 5'7" at best.
Right, right. Well, they're going to lose that battle with the people. They're losing it in Massachusetts, I think it is, or Connecticut, one of those states, which is considered to be very liberal. You will, the southern states are going to rise up unquestionably, the Bible Belt. You cannot, you disenfranchise teenage girls from
Yeah.
scholarships, from their education opportunities from those scholarships and sports scholarships through sports scholarships, and also it's just disruptive, first of all, for the plans of these young ladies when you allow them this anything like this. A man is a man. He has different chromosomes count. His hands are bigger. He is stronger, and it's really it is blatant racism to see anyone basically attempt to vindicate or any way implore anything action when it comes to transit. They're not going to have much of defense. You're going to see that crumble soon. It's just not. It's just these young girls deserve the right to compete, to go on to secondary schools because they were born girls. This
Right.
this transgender, I feel for them. I love people, but it shows the innate selfishness, for they know themselves they are built stronger, built better to endure. It's just Genesis. That's all I can say. And for anyone to try to bring this into their ideology and thinking politically, it is very warped, very warped. It always comes down to an attack on the Bible.
Right. Well, my thing, in nature, men and women are built differently, and that's just a fact. Men do,
Change.
we're biologically stronger. We have
Yeah.
stronger muscle mass.
Yes.
We're built differently. Even how we fall in love is different. Same thing with women. They're different. I cannot give birth to a baby. I can plant the seed, but the woman is the one who carries the child. When I
Yeah.
look at situations like this, though, of course, and what you're saying, I believe it was in Missouri where a lawsuit was filed. A girl filed a lawsuit because they're allowing transgenders in sports. And what I find very interesting is that I've noticed one image of these high school track athletes who are black. These were black males that they have put up in the forefront to be representatives of this. Black men, black boys in particular, they need to have strong male role models. They need to have fathers that are in the community, that are present. And I think in and of itself, because I've noticed, especially most of these commercials, something I saw too, and I'm going to show this for everybody. There was something called uh, Galentine's Day.
I didn't see it, so
I I saw it with Kate Jewelers, I believe, and I've seen these before. I've seen where I've noticed on commercials, more of the people, uh, these commercials that they do, more of them are either gay, the black characters are gay, or they're in an interracial relationship or in gay, things of that nature. I've seen Valentine's Day, a happy Valentine's Day card. I'm trying to actually find it. Someone had it, but what was interesting was that this was done. I'm trying to find the actual image of it, but I've seen stuff too where they've actually have, even in Christmas commercials, where it's a single mother, where they just so yeah, where they've have, you know, they may have a gay family or a white traditional family, but then they'll have a black woman standing there without, you know, with her children and no father there. And I think that is an offensive of itself. Shawn, what do you see when you look at images like that, especially with Biden's platform that he's pushing with his executive orders on transsexuals, transgenders, actually?
Well, when I look at Biden's executive orders as related to transgenders, I see him really getting ready to alienate his base of women voters, because most of your women voters were the ones who were getting the benefits
Right.
from these sports programs and even these jobs. And what's going to happen is he's going to alienate that female base. And as we saw in the 2020 election, white females went to vote for Donald Trump in over 70%. And this may start bringing the Latino women into the Republican group. And it may also bring the Asian women and even the black women, because these transgenders, they're only like, what, 0.2, 0.3% of the population. And if they come into women's spaces, these women are going to push back. And the Democrats are going to start fragmenting, because they're going to alienate a major base of them, which is, again, women, and also these feminists who fought to get these equal opportunities for themselves, and they're seeing these opportunities getting encroached on. So these executive orders, while they may be something he pushes in his agenda, they may wind up coming back to bite him in the rear in 2022, and it may wind up coming to bite him back on 2024, because many of these women, they are the largest voting bloc, and they are the people who hold most of the jobs in the economy. And it's not really smart to alienate these two groups, because they control the economy right now. And if you go out here and alienate the largest voting bloc and the people who control the economy, they can make it really rough for these Democratic candidates in 2022 and 2024.
Right. 2022, I think the Democrats are going to take a huge blow.
Yes, that's correct.
I see that happening, because this is going to bite them, like you said, Shawn, this is going to bite them in the butt.
Yeah.
Now,
they'll take a huge blow.
This is not from Kate Julius. I just want to say where this
as long as the servers and we use paper ballots, you know, anybody that comes up with the agenda that Democrats have to have another Trump card, no pun intended. And when it comes down to election day, it all made sense on November 4th why Biden stayed in the basement. It was, the fix was in. Now there's one thing that has to come out of this. Well, there's actually two things I think will come back. I think Trump will continually surge, and number one. Number two, I think these cases are going to be heard eventually. Three, but what must come out of this whole fiasco is election security and purity. Because if you don't, you work hard, you knock on doors, you tell people, you win people, and they sit behind in a dark room and change votes or bring out ballots at night. I mean, at that point, you don't have a democracy, you don't have a country. So I think the good thing that has happened, since they have been doing it prior, and Republicans are involved in this. We know the governor of Atlanta, he's a snake completely, and the secretary, and he switches party when the heat gets on. But anyway, this has to be cleaned up. And I think at that point, you could hold people with this radically left agenda accountable. But if they think they can steal elections, they don't have to hear you. They don't, you know, and their constituency can just, you know, they can placate them in many different ways. Now election security, purity, reform, all that has to happen before 2022, at least 2022.
Yeah, and I think this is something here that image, I don't know what it is. I'm just getting back to what I was. You see, all these people have a spouse or so forth, whether it's same sex or whatever. But the black woman, if you look at my mom on the left, she's hugging herself. She's single.
Okay.
And there's a message that is being sent with these images.
Yes.
They are trying to send something, and they make it seem that are women, that there's no husband.
Right.
And we know, of course, not true. There are more black fathers actually involved in their children's life, you know. But
yeah,
actively. But of course, they're putting a stereotype that, you know, the black, and it's certain that stereotype that black men aren't great fathers and abandon their wives and children. And on top of that, that it pushes that narrative, especially with regards to the feminist movement.
Yes.
I have seen where, you know, there are people, I support women, but feminist is another thing.
Okay.
That's a whole other get down talking about. They're, you know, they are making something else. And I wonder, though, what do a lot of people, especially now, and since we've had these winter storms, because I've seen people who have voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris also. I've seen on my Facebook page, some of them have been critical of their response with this. Like, they've been quiet. I mean, in Texas, of course, and I'm not, of course, Ted Cruz, he has his share of problem with that, but 4 million people are without, you know, going on Cancun, and 4 million people are without power under a boil advisory. I was going to talk about that in a second. But, you know, Shawn, when you see images like this, does this show we're in crisis?
It shows that a lot of people don't really understand what's going on. I mean, this is social engineering being put right in front of us. And it's really another insult directed at all of these black voters who took their booties to the poll to vote for Joker Joe Biden. I mean, this is a direct slap in the face to all of those black men and women. They're telling you, oh, that you're not capable of having a family. You're not capable of having a relationship. They're basically saying that as a black person, you're going to be single. And that's by design, because over the last 50 years, that's what they want to do. They don't want black men and black women coming together to build families, because when black men and black women come together to build families, it creates direct competition to white supremacists and institutions like the Democratic Party, which is a white supremacist institution. So they don't want you to see a black man and a black woman. And what they want to do is social engineer these ideas into not this generation's mind, but the next generation, because when you are constantly bombarded with images that present you a black man hugged up, like in this image, with a white woman and a black woman all by herself, that is trying to teach you something as related to these images to make you believe that this is normal, but this isn't normal at all. When it comes down to it, there are black men and black women who have loving relationships, and I write about that in many of my books, but they don't want to promote that in the mainstream. They want to keep the gender war going because, one, war is a business for the United States, and two, they don't want to see black men and black women coming together, because the greatest threat to white supremacy is a strong black family with a wife and a husband and a woman who has children.
I totally agree. What they're saying, this is preferred. Mm-hmm. This is coming down to, I hate to tell you this, guys, but Planned Parenthood is one of the chief facilitators. And what I hate to tell you, not exposing them, this is going down in New Jersey right now to kindergarten. The material, basic material that's reflective right here in this picture. And it's really going to challenge parents, the church. Is this an agenda that we're going to embrace? Will we revolt, despite the fact there will be civil rights cases and issues and a whole lot of unquestionably victimization of people that stand up against this. I know because it happens to me, but we have to understand that how deep this is going. This is not just high school where you can opt out any longer. Right. As a matter of fact, in New Jersey, you cannot opt out. So they are demanding, as my brother said, it is social engineering in your face. This is what we say is correct. This is how we see society. And they don't care about your Judeo-Christian ethic, your Muslim faith, your Jewish heritage. They do not care. I've never seen such disdain for the family since I've been living. And it's as he said, the stronger the family, the stronger the society. As a matter of fact, even God started with family before he even started with the church. You have the family unit first. That has to be repaired. And you're right, there are fathers, though maybe not in the home, that are definitely still engaged with their child that people do not talk about enough. But needless to say, it can get better. We have to take responsibility for that and stop listening to leadership that we're electing, mayors, council people that are promoting this idea of preference. This is what society should look like. And when you're 6, 7, or 8 years old, you know, I can still right now remember Tom, Dick, and Jane. I mean, I remember. I can see the pictures. I can see what was the teacher, what she was telling me. That this is see Jane run. I mean, I remember all that. Those are images of how society is. This is what you do. This is how it's done, right. And that's exactly what they're saying right here.
Yeah, most definitely, that's what they're saying here. This is Valentine's Day, but I mean, look, this is what a lot of people voted for.
Yeah,
you know, supposedly, you guys.
Supposedly, I don't think they did. I think Trump won the landslide.
I feel like there were a lot of, especially the elderly blacks, like people in Michigan and Atlanta, from was documented, that voted for Joe Biden and voted only because they were scared of Donald Trump. But they don't realize the consequences and things that Biden's done. Biden has made it abundantly clear when he had that conference call with those all of those so-called black leaders, some of whom were his age, talking to them extremely ugly, to the point where I saw a clip. Roland Martin even called him out for that, saying like how he's got to watch how he talks to those people and keep his mouth closed. But still, and what's funny about that too, Roland's talking about how they can't give money to blacks, but he asks on a regular basis for money for black media. He's asking the government to do that, so I think that's hypocritical. But
black propaganda. But go ahead.
Well, he appeals to the left-wing Democratic Party. He's just fill in for those. He and even and I started looking at him and Joy Reid, and I mean, I was guys. I've stopped. Al Sharpton has a show on MSNBC that I don't know who watches. It comes on so early in the morning, but they just put him on there, and he's, but that's another story. But no, my point is that we keep listening to, this is a guy who was responsible in large part for sending majority of black men to jail and prison with his crime bills, and people got behind him because of fear. And people didn't ask tough questions. When you vote, my vote is for free. It's not for free, excuse me. Mm-hmm. My vote is for sale. So you go on, who is going to give you the most tangibles? And I feel that people, and this is not just in even the presidential election, I find even in local elections, people are voting more on fear rather than on substance. And so, hey, you're going to have a man 6'4" playing. You're going to really have Joanna Man. This is Joanna Man. Like the movie Joanna Man. This is really going to happen. So really, by what Biden is saying, you're going to see men playing in the WNBA. You're going to have, I mean, why not? Or women in the NFL. And
Well,
I mean, look, they just had Vanderbilt, and they celebrated this. Did you see this, Shawn? This kicker, she was a female kicker that kicked the field goal. I think she missed, or she kicked the. I know she kicked the kickoff. She made history, and the team still lost like 40-0. This was in Vanderbilt. They fired the coach. The team was 0-8, and the team is 0-8, and so it just didn't make it. They celebrating all of this stuff, but it amounted to nothing, and it didn't even make, I think, a big splash, and to the point where even the kids at Vanderbilt, the players, I believe they boycotted because they didn't feel this was right. So you're seeing all of this being thrown at you, man, and this agenda. People gotta wake up. And it's funny you mentioned that, Reverend Childress, about the what they're reading to kids and doing in New Jersey, but it's also everywhere. It's in Illinois too. They have to have LGBTQ history. I saw a video courtesy of Tariq Nasheed where a transgender was interviewing a little kid, and the little kid, black kid, was asking, "So you used to be a boy?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, I was born a male. So why weren't you happy with God made you?
Mm.
God made you that way. Why wouldn't you be
That's a great response.
No,
now, are you talking about, is this those library children hours that transgenders are coming in? Yeah, see, they have a movement, and they're after the kids. I can't handle that.
But there was more to it, and when he said that, she said, or it said, well, but you're not at that. But the kid was basically confused, saying, "Well, I just don't understand it."
Mm-hmm.
He kept asking questions like, "I don't understand. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And I thought it was interesting. But kids even recognize it,
right?
And
that's what we're taught in Scripture. Innately, it's wrong. They'll never be happy. I want people to be happy. I don't have anything against homosexual or lesbianism. Of course, the lifestyle is offensive to me because not only are they hurting around, but they're hurting themselves. You can change every law in this country. You still have to live with yourself. And the Scripture teaches us that nature testifies against you. And there's nothing you can do with nature. And so they live tormented. I didn't know 42% of all transgender commit suicide. They're keeping that. Man, that was shocking to me. And yet they're pushing this on kids in school. Experiment. Know who you are. And you know that data. This is really putting pressure on the church. You have to talk to your kids now. It's not a question of allowing the teacher to be the main arbiter of truth to your children. You got to say, what do they say? What are they talking about? What about this? What went on in this class? And it's time for the church to get back in the education business. Personally, I honestly feel, because you're confusing, as the story you just shared, confusion, and you're confusing them with perversion because you're going against the design of nature. Nature, and that's the worst confusion for a child. But and we're legalizing it.
Yeah, and what's interesting too about that is that we are seeing that more and more being pushed, and my thing is that where does it end? That's the big question I have, because if we're talking about transgenderism, if you're saying, I'm just being real, if you're saying a 12-year-old or even younger than that, a 3-year-old or 5-year-old can decide that they want to be a boy, if they're born a girl, or if they are born a girl and want to, or if they're born a boy and want to be a girl, then if you're talking about changing sex, what about, as troublesome as it is there a limit to even them having sexual relations? Are people going to push?
Parents are ill prepared to fight this because their major concern is put the food on the table, keep the rent, the mortgage paid, keep the car note going, and protect. We assume as parents, if we send them to school, they'll be okay. And what they'll be taught will be, because we're going back to when we went to school. Of course, I'm older than you guys. So, but you got to get out of that and see the school as a problem, and you got to get on the PTA boards. You got to get involved. When the first unit, the first institution revolts against this, then this will change. Here in Jersey, there was parents that said, "You are not inoculating our children. You're not going to demand for our children to have vaccines." That bill was squashed, killed, stopped. And it was a bunch of mothers out there that were not taking any prisoners. So unfortunately, this is where we're at. And the more we tell parents what's being taught, what the agenda is, I think we would be surprised if they would take the time to say, we didn't sign up for this. We didn't sign on for that. I didn't send my child to your school, to this school, to be imposed upon with your eugenic ideals.
Yeah. I do want to ask you this. Computer Robots had a question for Shawn. Do you think these people who make these laws, like the Democratic Party, will be judged by the living God later?
Yes, I do believe they're going to be judged by the living God, and he's going to judge them very harshly because they are violating his law, and they're also leading the others to violate his law. I mean, they are just like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Basically, they are making people twice as bad as what these sinners they are right now, and they're doing this with malice aforethought because they want to push their deviant sexual agenda, and as I see it, their satanic sexual agenda. I mean, these people really, they know that they're in the wrong, and they still want to keep pushing because they think if they get enough members in their legion, they will be seen as the right. But they're not seen as the right by the living God, and he's going to punish them even in this life and even in the next life with a final judgment.
I agree.
Let me ask you this, Bishop, since I brought you on. I had a very important question because you do deal with Black genocide and tying it all in with that. I was curious because T.D. Jakes earlier, he was trending from what I saw because he was on Dr. Oz, and I saw Vicky Diller talking or doing a video about him with regards to the COVID-19 shot, telling people, I guess, to go ahead and get it. You know, he's been trying to convince as many people. Have you ever reached out to him with regards to blackgenocide.org or any of the mega PAC?
There's a group, a good friend of mine, I'm looking at his face, can't call his name. They did reach out to the church, and it was just a few compared to the numbers. It was a dismal representation that came down. He had, in his early days, expressed a pro-life, pro-family doctrine far more strongly than he does now. Now, listen, the greatest baseball player ever lived, Hank Aaron, said, "I am going to make myself an example to my generation, and I'm going to take the COVID shot." He was dead 12 days later. There's a 68-year-old woman that in Atlanta who is a TV producer. She took it, had a stroke the next day. It has not been tested properly. We don't know the long-term ramifications. You're asking me to take a vaccine for something that's 99% curable. It makes no sense unless you're trying to. Just before I talked with you, I played a tape on Bill Gates. That was not Bill Gates, but Mark Zuckerberg, who is like Bill Gates, no medical training whatsoever, but you're engaged in vaccines, you're engaged in all this sexual reproduction and monitoring. You're engaged in eugenics, case closed. And you have determined you don't want X amount of people of color on this planet. I tell him to his face, it's so clear upon looking upon what he has done and what he has accomplished. What am I saying? Zuckerberg's a little younger. You may be able to reach him, but he's concerned because he knows from early testing that this vaccine affects your DNA. Are you kidding me? I don't know the proof. I wouldn't want to know, I guess, but we know that the Chinese basically tweaked this particular virus to go after people of color, to affect African Americans more adversely. And that's
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you mentioned that too. But in China, I remember when this outbreak happened, and I did a video on it, they were actually forbidding many of the African immigrants that were in there from being into their businesses and establishments. They were actively discriminating against them to the point that the Chinese ambassador had to speak with the president of one of the African countries because they were concerned about what was going on over there in Beijing and in Wuhan and so forth, all these other cities. So I'm funny you mentioning that, but that's what I wanted to point out.
Well, it's not surprising. Mr. Zuckerberg then got on an interview with Fauci and debunked what he said, that he didn't know that Kevin O'Keefe of Veritas had taped and leaked. So in other words, the tape discussion, he didn't know was going to be leaked, but he does a commercial or a fake interview with Fauci, and he debunks the DNA concern that the vaccines basically will change your DNA. So in other words, you're just playing the czar of reproductive rights. You are more or less manipulating, and you've sold out to the idea that this vaccine will help you achieve your goals of the picture of the population that you want to have here on Earth. What's your name? Gates can't even go into Pakistan. There's certain African nations that have banned him from coming. And no one, this is the media. You know, you started off talking about the First Amendment, and I meant to ask you what's up with that, what you're feeling, because you said we have certain censorship worries. Who's doing that? Is it the Republicans? Is it DNA? And I don't trust Republicans either. Don't ever think that I'm sold out. Mitch McConnell is a Chinese emissary, as far as I'm concerned, and he is dangerous. And there's others. What's the one that was hanging out with Fang Fang? I can't think of his name right. He's a congressman. I mean, we Republicans. There's Republicans. It's just what it is. There's so much in the Democratic Party. Now, can I say election fraud? Can I say anything about the fact that the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, has baby body parts in it?
I'm sorry, you were talking about Representative Swalwell. He's Democrat.
Swalwell, yes. So I mean, he's a Democrat. But I guess my point is, none of these things surfaced of the relationships with China. But China, look what I think the Uyghur community, the one child rule policy. Yeah, but guess what? The NBA affirms them. And anything, and they wheel out LeBron James to basically denounce the Houston coach that said something about the human rights abuse. The older I get, I guess the more frustrated I get. That frustrated me all morning when I heard that. LeBron James is a disgrace, and he's allowing these people to use and manipulate him to get across their agenda. If anyone should be talking about human rights abuse in the position he is, and the talents and skills that he has, Michael Jordan, I would think, would do it. Bill Russell certainly would do it. Wilt Chamberlain, you're doggone right, he'd do it. But Mr. James, I am sorry. Let me go on record. You're disgraceful. He actually rebuked the Houston people and said they don't have enough information. You don't have enough information about the abuses that China is perpetrating against their people and what they're doing in these concentration camps and all their surveillance and all their forced vaccinations. They're what I mean, we're being consumed. So when you said at the beginning, we have censorship rules, we're concerned about censorship, that's them. That's what China does. They control the information you get. And we've been taken over. And that's what this battle is right now. That, you know, how Zuckerberg, the guy from Twitter, Bezos and all the rest of it, the high tech has said, we will set the narratives and we will tell you how to think. We've lost every institution. You know, there has to be a revival. Yeah. Academia, Hollywood, you name it. Where do we dominate? Where does the Judeo-Christian ethic dominate anywhere or project, you know, its values? So, you know, this is why these shows are good, because the church has rolled up the white flag. I'm thankful for what's going on in California. I'm thankful that these governors are showing the churches what they really think of them, because it's waking some churches up to be the church, believe it or not. It is. I see a basically quickening and saying, I got to get more involved. I got to be more engaged, because they recognize these governors have no, man, back in the 60s and 70s, if the church said something, the governors would listen. The elected officials are saying, listen, the church has no voice. The church has no voice, where they would basically make a decision based on the desires and the wants of the church. Now, that was shifting under Trump after the evangelical vote and all that. But the church itself, I believe this year that the church, the local church, you missing Jakes, unfortunately, the mega church is the problem now, because they're under so much debt. They really can't take a stand on most issues, a clear stand. They're worrying about offending people. They're worrying about people not coming back and not being supportive. In the meantime, our children are being fed a transgender doctrinal teaching, spoon-fed, and we're not saying anything. Can you imagine if T.D. Jakes, Creflo Dollar, this 2 or 3 of them, and I'm going to say this and talk a little bit too much. The shame of Bishop Eddie Long was that he, prior to, reflected everything that I believe God wanted in a mega church concerned with his people, a mega African-American church. Obviously, a demon from the past creeped up and took him out. That's why he said, you know, your character has to be able to keep you where the Holy Spirit takes you. And he didn't have accountability. Everybody needs accountability. Someone has to watch you, okay, and that will not be intimidated by you and has a concern that you continue to pursue your original vision. That's the biggest shame. That he did a march for family in Atlanta. He sat with presidents and governors. He had a male mentor program that was second to none. But there were some demons in the closet that were resurrected somehow. I wasn't down there. I was down there enough to know him, but not really his day-to-day. Yes, now he's going up in flames, but I will always testify of what I saw and what I witnessed. That's the local church has to begin to take its rightful place in the society, and stop waiting to become TD Jakes. Stop waiting to be a Joel Osteen. Stop waiting. Look at this dude down in North Carolina, Gray. Can I tell you something? That's not the Gray I first met. That is not, let me tell you something. That man was anointed. But the prosperity, not everybody can handle it. You know, my pastor used to say, you don't know how you would be on the other side of $1 million. And that is the second waste. But guess what? He came out of Newburgh. Bishop John Gray. Bishop John Gray. Okay. Yes, John Gray came out of Newburgh and went to Joel Osteen, and then went to this hookup with Rob Carpenter that's turning into nothing but a legal battle now over the ownership of the building and all that. This is why the local church, the 75, 100, 200, 300, we got to make a comeback, because we stay honest to the cause, okay? And two, it's important. It doesn't matter if we're not on BET and not on PTL or whatever. It doesn't matter to us. You know, we're trying to be impactful. I mean, they literally sell their soul to be on Daystar, okay? And there's certain people that are supposed to be on Daystar. I can't be trying to be what they are. I have to be what I am to South Clinton Street here in East Orange. I have to be that person God has designed me to be. That's going to make me not try to be a media star. It's going to make me be at the PTA meeting. I'm going to be at the town meeting. I say, no, that doesn't reflect my values. I want to be on record. I'm going to fight against you on this. I'm going to petition against this agenda that you have here. That's not happening. And it's got to happen.
But what I think it goes to the fact that many, especially back in 2000, 2001, when George W. Bush became president, you had these faith-based initiatives, and these pastors, priests, rabbis, and shans and so forth. They have imams. They have been given monies from the government in order to stay silent on certain issues. Even when you talk about a 501c3 status, that makes you a tax exempt organization, when churches should be the exception, not the exemption. But that's why yes. They don't. Right, but that's why they don't say anything. For instance, even in the church, D.L. Hughley once said this. He said that the Black church was the gayest place in America, because we know that there are a lot of homosexuals that are open, that are there. Like we knew who they were and so forth, and most of us never said anything unless they, tried to come on to you, or if they said something that caught you off guard or stuff like that. We didn't really bother them. We still don't, but they have tried to make us now even the face of LGBTQ bullying, or the face of, for instance, I'm seeing more and more on television, like the new Punky Brewster that's coming out, the revival.
The
Black character, Sherry Johnson. Her uncle was the one who created Punky Brewster. Her character is going to be a lesbian. Now, I've watched, the show before back in the day, and when you were kids, back then you watched that, you had crushes on those girls and stuff like that because you grew up with them. Same thing, like I knew her from Family Matters. That's where I played Max. So I was going to do a video on it. I'm just wondering, even that character, when she was coming up, she was, straight. Why are we seeing, we're seeing these increase message? And don't get me wrong, there are gay people exist, but damn, it seems like it's just an agenda over and over again. They got to throw it in there. The show Power, one of the actors there, I don't think the actor is gay, but I mean, they have a gay storyline in it. It goes back to this book called After the Ball, where they talked about increasing and pushing the images of homosexuality and lesbianism on television. And we're seeing that. And, it started also with shows like, I know it was like Three's Company back in the 70s. And
Yeah, they three's and
Crystal really gave.
do you know what saved us for a while was actually hip hop and gangster rap during that time. Young people, uh,
Well, I think even
you could not be flamboyant and be gay in that season, but they had the LGBT is very calculating and they don't rush, and they
well,
said they had to get to the black community and begin to. Unfortunately, Michael Jackson kind of played into that the femininity thing, and I think Michael Jackson's one of the greatest entertainers of all time. And but right, but
he was a straight man.
I praise so, but there was a reflection of femininity, you know, and are you effeminate? The question about the boys there at his home there and whatnot. It was they paid out some money, but that's not always means you're guilty in that world.
Well, it wasn't, and I mean, he was acquitted. In all fairness,
yeah. I'm a Michael Jackson fan. I think he went through a lot of abuse. I think his father did one of the greatest injustices that I've ever heard about for someone who was contributing so much to the family. Michael Jackson himself. You know, the worst thing to have is an abusive father. Is you know, and it's hard to recover from that. So
well, that's another story. But I mean, even Joe Jackson, I could say this, and Michael has even said it. Without him, you know, look what he created with us. Because that whole family, that whole family, even their grandchildren, are set for life. In terms
of,
I mean, if they want to go into the music business and use their uncle and aunt's names,
if it's worth all that. You know, here's a man who couldn't sleep without an injection of lethal. Yes, I mean that is at the end of my life. This is what all that I've accomplished, that I can't sleep unless you drug me, and which basically no. Well, I appreciate.
What I'm saying is, beat it as it may, though, Reverend. Michael, and this is just for me, Michael has stated that he and his father have made peace before he died.
That was good.
And he forgave his father publicly because because he understood, and this was just what he was saying. He understood at least why his father was hard on him. They never.
Forgiveness is critical for the person who's even been offended. It's critical for the offender, but even more for the person who was the victim of letting that person go. And people don't know that 21 days before Michael Jackson died, he was with Andre Crouch and his sister, and Andre said he led him to Christ. And I know he was into a lot of other stuff. But he said he led him to Christ because, you know, on that level that he was on, you know, he was into that warlock, that cultish type thing, and he came out of it, which most people don't do, but he did. And Andre testified to that before he went on to be with the Lord. So that, which, you know, during his prior to his death, on that Sunday prior to his death, God, you know, had me to preach the man in the mirror and to look at what he was saying in his song and everything. So when he passed away, I said, you know, Lord, that was one of your sons, wasn't it? You know, I've kind of missed that. That was one of your sons. It's out there. And
a lot of this thing too, this is a different subject, but I know that in Hollywood and in music industry, there is something called celebrity, and Randy Quaid alluded to this, like star whacking, where they kill a lot of these celebrities and musicians, especially for their money, their catalog. I mean, you know, that's been speculated. There's things about Prince I've heard. Even the Sam Cooke story. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix or have seen.
I haven't seen the full. I just know from the stories that he was his own. He would not bow. Yeah. If I'm correct, he would not bow, and he was starting to be one of the most powerful men as an African American in music, and they said no.
Right. Well, about that, and I've done a live stream, and you're welcome, and your viewers, your members are welcome to go to my channel. I did a live stream. If you guys can stomach some foul language, I'm human, but I did. It wasn't all bad, but every now and then I may have said something. But no, I did a live stream about Sam Cooke and Otis Redding, and a lot of people don't know that Sam Cooke, first and foremost, and where he was killed was questionable. As with Otis Redding, because most people don't know that in the 1960s, James Brown and Otis Redding were in the process of starting their own record label, record company, and publishing company, which at that time, Otis Redding was the biggest selling singer at the time. He even outsold the Rat Pack. He outsold Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra combined at that point. And his plane mysteriously crashes with the Bar-Kays. One person survives, and I think he really didn't. From our brother Shawn James, he interviewed him, and a guy really I didn't want to talk about it too much. He still had nightmares from it, from what I've read. But that's the type of stuff that goes on. But but I get what you're saying, and I feel that what we're seeing today, again, there is certainly an effort we see that's pushing all of that. Your leaders are supporting it, obviously. It's in your school, it's in your music, and certainly they're trying to push it onto the youth. But there's definitely with that. Shawn, you want to add something on that aspect?
Of what? Because I was just listening.
I thought you were going to say something about Michael, because I thought you was.
No, I don't have anything to say about Michael. I mean, he was a great entertainer, and I'm glad that he found the Lord in the last days of his life, and he found salvation. That's a good thing to hear, and that's probably all I'm going to add to it.
Right. And Michael also, just another footnote, one of the things that he did as a businessman and even as a black man, a lot of he gave more monies to black colleges and universities, even more than Bill Cosby. He set up scholarships. Another thing he did too was that he tried to give back Little Richard his music catalog, because Little Richard got ripped off by his music label, the record executives there. So he was very conscious of that. That's why he bought that Sony ATV. Well, it was called the ATV catalog. And a lot of people, Reverend, the songs that are in that catalog, they tried to say Michael was broke. Maybe broke if you own the rights to Hey Jude or the Christmas song, or even just part of Elvis's music. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, I remember this documentary that talked about it. I was shocked about it. And matter of fact, he said, I'm not only a singer, but I have a brain, and I think, and I'm a businessman. And he got all those rights. And he said this. I forgot the name. The person who's the owner of Sony. He said he called him the devil in public. In public. Who was his name? Okay, right. Exactly.
Mariah Carey's first husband.
He specifically said it and wanted people to know that Tommy Mottola was the devil. Now, because there were things that like they were into stuff, but he was saying he really is manifesting, the pure evil, unconcerned. And I didn't know she's married to Tommy.
Yeah, she was.
I didn't know she was married. Well, man, how do you go from Tommy Mottola to what's my man's name? Kate. What's his name that she married?
Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon. How do you go from that to I don't. Is there something with me? Maybe I'm missing something.
Hey, she married younger. she married up, then she married down. Not she married younger. I mean, Nick was about 29, I think, when they got married, or something like that. So she was 39, so she's like 10 years older than him. So, but this next story I want to talk about is, and we're going to talk. This is one of the second to last subjects we have. ERCOT to raise Texas energy prices, blaming high demand from winter storm. So this video, courtesy of KHU out in Houston, they're talking about the winter storm that knocked out prices. Now they're saying that energy prices will rise.
Outages have caused prices of energy in Texas now to go up. The Public Utility Commission ordered ERCOT to adjust costs to reflect the scarcity of the supply. Reporter Anastasia Bolton has more on what that could mean for you at home.
I don't know how many people are going to freaking die because they did this and not having the resources to maintain.
Question, can y'all hear?
I can hear it. I can hear it.
The video? Okay.
Let's during this weather.
We're kind of swimming in it, aren't we?
Currently in my house, it's 57 degrees. Looking for a place to stay, but all the motels are either booked or they have no power.
Not literally, of course. Many of us don't have water.
There's coffee, hot chocolate, water. There's milk in the snow.
But in terms of frustration,
there was a long line. Unfortunately, there was not many people that was able to get what they needed.
Some people are hanging on with all
you need to send us some help now, because we need some help.
So the price of powering your home may not be on your mind, and that price at the manufacturing level went up from an average of $36 per megawatt hour to $9,000. $9,000 is the limit set by the Public Utility Commission this week to reflect the scarcity of electricity right now.
When supply drops and demand increases, price increases. That's economics 101.
Andrew Barlow speaks for PUC.
What it did is it allowed the producers of that electricity to be compensated at the same level that all the other producers in the market were being compensated for their power.
The producers and distributors think in terms of megawatts, consumers kilowatts. So on the consumer level, we went from 3.6 cents per kilowatt to $9.
Yeah, when a hurricane comes into the Gulf of Mexico and the hardware store makes the price of a D battery $4 and the sheet of plywood goes to $50. That's called price gouging, but that's not being applied here with this grid failure.
Some consumers will feel the price, all depending on how they get their electricity.
For most people at home, it shouldn't mean very much, because if they've contracted with a solvent-managed retail electricity provider, for customers who were in the pool, this could be a problem for them. And for those customers who buy wholesale through Griddy, for example, oh my, it's going to be a severe financial hit for them at the end of the month.
PUC says consumers should pay close attention at contract renewal time.
And that's the whole notion of the informed consumer and the power of choice that you have within the Texas energy-only market.
I'm Anastasia Bolton.
Okay, so you guys saw it there. They're raising the prices. And amazing when you have people that are without power, and Houston is the fourth largest city in the United States. Of course, earlier today, too, coupled with that, what happened Wednesday when Ted Cruz was spotted on a plane headed to Cancun on vacation. And in fact, what's interesting about that, someone on Twitter had referenced that to an episode of The Simpsons. And of course, The Simpsons, for whatever reason, they have always predicted the future, whether it was a Trump presidency or a woman in the White House, or although, you know, things of that nature.
Right.
Stuff, even the COVID-19 virus.
Yes, it's scary. Scary.
I think it's planned, but you know, coupled with that, but I'm gonna start with Shawn. When you hear this story about the prices going up in Houston, Shawn, what are your thoughts? This is certainly exploitive of, you know, of a tragedy.
Yeah, it is exploitive of a tragedy, but history shows us this has already happened before. I mean, we were told back, ever since 2003, we need to do something about our obsolete electrical grid. I mean, our electrical grid is over 50 years old, and much of this technology needed to have been upgraded over a decade ago, but the House and the Senate and even state and local officials have not made any efforts to upgrade this obsolete electrical grid. And this electrical grid is not able to sustain things because it's old, and most people just keep kicking the can down the road instead of taking things seriously. Now, these price increases, they remind me of what happened in 2002 or so with Enron and the big scandal with them. And it's just the same thing happening all over again. But when I look at the big picture of this, this is something we should have taken care of over a decade or so ago, 17 years ago, really. We should have taken care of this and started working towards upgrading this electrical grid. Now, you have all these politicians, and the crazy thing now is they're talking about they want all these cars to go electric. And this complete electrical failure shows us that our grid, it can't even handle a winter storm. But you want to have not only electronic devices on this old grid, but you want to have cars powering up on this grid. And we're not prepared for that at all. And we're not investing anything as related to our infrastructure. And nobody's really thinking about investing in our infrastructure. We have idiots talking about green energy, and we saw how that failed. We saw how all the windmills failed and all these other things failed. But we don't really want to focus on trying to do things as investing into our own country. We're investing in other people's countries, but we need to start focusing on building and rebuilding this grid, because this grid needs a complete overhaul and has needed an overhaul for over 20 years. And we know that it needs an overhaul, and it needs to be rebuilt so it can handle these loads. And I would have to say maybe even try to get some of these lines underground so that they can wind, so you won't have blackouts during hurricanes and storms, because a lot of areas are still got power lines that are on above ground. It's time for us to really, again, upgrade this grid and upgrade this system so it can actually handle these kind of things. But what happened in Texas is the whole state was never prepared for this type of weather. They're used to warm weather, but the whole thing is this grid needed a complete overhaul, and it needed an overhaul over 20 years ago.
Well, definitely. Pastor.
Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead. Give your thoughts about what you just read.
Oh, on the Texas thing,
yes.
It's disturbing, but I think Brother Shawn has hit it right on the head. It's our our greatest vulnerability is the grid. And if an MP, they talk about MP bombs, they talk about attack on the grid, is something that is not only, I always thought in that vein, how vulnerable it is for attack, which would deeply affect the economy as well as the well-being of the whole state if there was ever a successful attack. I think Texas's grid is their own, but it's not, we need to be concerned with every one of them that we depend on. Since we're energy dependent in the last couple of years, there should be a plan to, I would say, I'm either way on fracking. I don't know if it's good for the earth or not. Right now, it was good economically for Pennsylvania, some of those other states. I think we need to have energies that would be unquestionably able to adapt, certainly, to the conditions that Texas is under, but they haven't been under those conditions since I think it was 1802. So that's going to be their argument. But there's no question that the repairs that he mentioned is certainly, as he said, they kept kicking the can down the road. And I don't know how you can possibly do that, knowing how vulnerable you were with not only the repair, but the fact that it's not defended well. And we live in a different world now. We live in a different world where these things could undoubtedly come under. Today was an ice storm. Next 6 months from now, it could be a bomb here, a bomb there, or whatever. So the grids, I'm surprised at the massive failure of the grid, isn't it? You're talking about Houston, Dallas, someone even further out Midwest, almost to El Paso. I said, what? Because Texas is a tremendously big state. And I said, well, I need to be a little bit more educated on that system there. But I think it's just as Shawn said, they were aware of it. They're aware of it. It was old. It needed repair. as well as the nation's grid. It's kind of scary. They're very vulnerable, but this is sends a message. Now, does anyone have the death toll in Texas?
If we can find that right now, death toll from the ice storm, death toll in Texas. It actually says here, okay, so this is CBS News. The relentless winter blast. This is from CBS News. It says the winter weather emergency in Texas and much of the South is getting worse, with millions facing night in the dark with no heat and no clean water. This relentless winter blast is blamed for at least 24 deaths this week. Now, I don't know if that's including if that's just in total or if it's Texas. I'm assuming that it's just total that they're talking about here, but they're saying more than 2.5 million are in the dark with no third day. I mean, even in Baton Rouge, where at my adopted home city, they were out of power for the last couple of days. Some of them almost 80 hours without power. We've certainly backwards in terms of advancing and protecting our energy sources, focusing on ways of developing even new ways of getting energy sources. I mean, the city is they're also a boil water order in Houston, all of Houston, and some of them have been without running water. Remember when it gets cold, water freezes, the pipes, so you're not getting water there. I saw a video of someone with basically an ice chandelier that it's not funny, but what coming through their ceiling. Essentially, people weren't built for that. So to see that, but I have this. What's on Twitter? This is political side as well. This is Tim Boyd. He was the former mayor. He was mayor 24 hours ago, but now he has resigned of Colorado City, Texas, because he made this controversial post. He says, "Let me hurt some feelings while I have a minute. No one owes you or your family anything. Nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. Sink or swim, it's your choice. The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing. I'm tired of picking for a damn handout. If you don't have electricity, you step up and come up with a game plan to keep your family warm and safe. If you have no water, you deal without and think outside of the box to survive and supply water to your family. If you are sitting at home in the cold because you have no power and are sitting there waiting for someone to come rescue you because you're lazy, is the direct result of your raising. Only the strong will survive and the weak will perish. For God has given us the tools to support ourselves in times like this. This is sadly a product of a socialist government where they feed people to believe that the few will work and others will become dependent for handouts. Am I sorry I've been dealing without electricity and water? Yes, but I'll be damned if I'm going to provide for anyone that is capable of doing it themselves. We have lost sight of those in need and those that take advantage of the system and mesh them into one group. Bottom line, quit crying and looking for a handout. Get off your ass and take care of your own family. Now, he mentions God in this, but you know, one of the main things, being a Christian, I thought was helping others and supposed to be about do unto others as they would done unto you, the rule. But
I go back to what Shawn said, that there was gross negligence here. Yeah. And I'm going to see about these lawsuits that come from this that probably unquestionably I think will resonate and have they'll have standing, because you more or less basically just covered a obviously dangerous situation and really didn't step up and do what you had to do as far as engineers, technicians, and the mayor who oversees that. I don't know who this guy is, but
he was the mayor of Boulder City.
It was really It was really embarrassing to watch that
City,
mayor make that
Texas.
statement.
I'm sorry.
That's too big a city for him to be mayor of, making comments like that. But go ahead, Shawn.
It just shows how he's a failed leader, because a leader is supposed to step up during a crisis like this. He's not supposed to fold like this and then say it's other people's fault. I mean, you were elected to represent these people and represent their interests and supposedly keep people safe. But instead of him standing up for the people he was supposed to represent, he decides to blame them. And that's just weak leadership, as I see it, and a complete failure of leadership overall. I mean, you just don't.
It's a sign of being a weak leader, but also it's a sign of being a weak leader, Shawn. It's also selfish. It's also a sign of how selfish these people get elected in by these people, and they swear to be Christians, but yet they espouse some of the most mean-spirited, hate-filled comments and posts that they'll put on here. You know, I just came from Mass yesterday when we celebrate Lent, and in the gospel it talked about how Christ talked about the scriptures was and Jesus was talking about when you pray to your Father, you know, do it in secret. When you give, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And you have here someone who is essentially, and you know what? I appreciate his honesty about how he really feels, because this is what you guys elect. And when you elect people, they're putting on a facade. Now, not everyone. There are some who are genuine about wanting to do the right thing. There are some who are in there to do some great things in their communities and try, and they get held back by some people because it's not just all on them. But this man just essentially stated that he didn't give a damn about the people of Colorado City, Texas, or anybody else for that matter. And frankly, he has committed what I find to be political suicide, because
he's done. Now he's done. There's no question he's done. But go ahead.
Yeah, he's done. Oh, this is political suicide. You don't ever attack your constituents and the people that put you in.
Right.
You know,
right.
I think he didn't like his job, so he just got, you know what? I'm gonna just post this and I'm gonna quit.
It's sad. It is sad. And once again, he's not taking any of the leader takes the hit, you know, and to say under these circumstances of your gross negligence and a storm that people have no control whatsoever, that they're asking for handouts, and to say they're asking for handouts, he's got issues. He's got big issues. I don't see anything there that's been substantively reflective of the situation he's in. He's almost like he's a cartoon character trying to deal with the trauma of what has happened in this. He's sad. He's sad.
Yeah, most definitely. So I want to bring this up. This is our land in regards to Andrew Cuomo. Now, I have seen Shawn's video about Andrew Cuomo. I did read the article about the COVID-19 controversy that was going on. Of course, Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, like his father, Mario Cuomo, he has been caught in a scandal. Now, just to so everybody can go over this, this is according to the Insider, and I'm going to pull that up for you guys right in a second. He is facing a federal investigation into this matter. Now, let's explain what happened for everybody. When you read the article, I'm trying to put it up here, but essentially, oh, geez, I hate when these things come up. All right.
I would like it better if it was under Trump administration. I think he was getting ready to try to deal with cleaning out the FBI. I don't trust the FBI's investigation of him. It's basically been very extremely deep state-ish in there, even to the point where even with the fraud, they said basically they didn't have any evidence. And so Attorney General Barr said he's received no evidence. Well, before Barr left, said I didn't receive any evidence because the FBI didn't give me any. And when when they went to investigate the guy who had the trailer of ballots that were made in China, that guy said the agent himself was more of the problem than actually the fact of the evidence and everything. He said he did not want to investigate it. So, but here's his problem though. It was a confidant of his, someone that he never thought would betray him and or give up that information. And now you have all these senators that are demanding the investigation as well as action be taken. I don't think he survives this one. I could be wrong. I don't see it.
Well, let's let everybody know what's going on. After being hailed as a hero in the early days of the coronavirus pandemic, Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York is now facing an investigation into his administration by federal prosecutors and an attempt by his fellow Democratic state lawmakers to strip him of his emergency powers. Cuomo has faced increasing scrutiny from lawmakers over recent reports that his administration withheld data on COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes and severely undercounted nursing home deaths. The fallout is connected to an advisory issued in March, which said nursing homes could not deny residents for being coronavirus positive. So now the FBI and United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York are investigating the Cuomo administration's handling of nursing homes during the pandemic, the Times Union reported. The U.S. Attorney's investigation is part of an inquiry into the top members of Cuomo's coronavirus task force. Those specific people have not been named. The Department of Justice did not respond to a request from comment from the insider. Let me just say too, Bishop, on your first point about how you don't trust the FBI currently under this administration, I don't think we trust the FBI at all because of their history, and especially of how they've dealt with being Black History Month, what they have dealt with Black civil rights leaders like Dr. King and Malcolm X.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't see in this article where, the real condemnation comes is that the nursing home directors did not want the patients because, just as you and I know, without being medical doctors, if you're sick, you don't go around grandma and you don't go around grandpa. Their immune systems are lower. They're more susceptible. He ordered them to take those patients. And the same thing with Murphy here in New Jersey. And all while he's suppressing hydroxychloroquine as a treatment that's been approved by the FDA since 1950 something for malaria and other things. It would have been a game changer. You would not have had the deaths that you had. But once again, that is the most susceptible part of our community that he chose to endanger. And I wrote about that. And then arrogantly talk about the numbers dropping when he was lying, talk about the numbers dropping. And most of them were nursing home deaths. I think 50, 60% were nursing home deaths in New York. But my point is, then he made the comment, well, God didn't do that. We did that when the numbers were dropping. Yeah. That I looked and I said, did I just hear that? So I knew something was going to come. I knew something was going to come around. The boomerang effect was about to hit him. I knew he'll win.
And they're talking about him possibly being a presidential candidate. I'm like,
he's done.
He's finished.
He's done. He's done.
Basically, what happened to Andrew Cuomo here is that people have been talking about this for over a year. I mean, in conservative circles, they had been talking about this nursing home scandal ever since about April or so, but they couldn't get anything out here because the mainstream media kept suppressing it. I mean, they kept it buried for over a year, and I say the news media was also complicit in this because they wanted to get Joe Biden elected, but people knew that this was going on for over a year, but most people didn't want to talk about it. I mean, I had family members telling me not to talk about it, and I had heard about it in conservative circles, but I decided not to make any videos about it because I just didn't know how that would be seen, because This guy, people knew what he was about from ever since March of 2020, and they knew that he was up to no good from there. And really, he did this basically because he wanted to throw a middle finger up at Donald Trump, because President Trump had given New York City the USNS Comfort to take COVID patients. They had expanded the Javits Center, which was never used. They had the Barclays Center, which was never used. They had Central Park, which was never used. And they had all of these facilities, but because these resources were being provided by President Trump, he did not want Donald Trump to get the credit for being able to combat COVID-19, and he wanted to get the credit for himself. And that is just reprehensible when you think about it. This man cost New Yorkers their lives. He took away the lives of people's elderly grandmothers and aunts and grandfathers. And he also took away the lives of people who were disabled, because the people who go to those rest homes, they're not only elderly people, they're also people who have mental disabilities. And this man basically murdered these individuals by putting them around these COVID-19 patients who would make these people who are already vulnerable populations put their health at risk. And that was done, again, with malice aforethought from your Andrew Cuomo, because he was in his feelings about Donald Trump. Same thing with your Governor Wolf and your Governor Whitmer. And that's why I say there's going to be a bloodbath in 2022, because these guys aren't going to be able to come back from these nursing home scandals. I mean, the voters already see that these guys did this with malice aforethought, and their Trump obsession made it where these people are not fit to run for office, because it was all about them trying to spite Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, it became an obsession for them. They just had such tunnel vision. It was like, I want to get Donald Trump. I want to get Donald Trump. But then you cost the American people their lives. And that's what I talked about in the video called America's Pyrrhic Victory. These guys were so caught up in trying to get Donald Trump, and they got the victory with the Biden election, but it's going to cost them in the end, because they wound up alienating the American people, because they look at scandals like this and see that we've got politicians who are clearly unfit for office, like Andrew Cuomo, and these individuals need to be removed because they are a greater threat than your Donald Trump to the American people, because their ethics are just absolutely twisted. They were willing to let American citizens die to be an acceptable loss in order to get a win for Joe Biden. And that's just evil when you think about it. I mean, there's just malice aforethought, complete cruelty. I mean, this is just some monster behavior. And this person, again, unfit for office. And as I see it, he should have resigned. But instead of him resigning, he's still trying to hold on to power. And he needs to just walk away like Eliot Spitzer did, because if Eliot Spitzer walked away over a prostitute scandal, this man needs to walk away because he's just not fit for office. He's not qualified for office.
That's a good point.
He's just not fit for this office to lead New Yorkers, because if you'll lie to murder New Yorkers in a pandemic, there's no telling what other evil things you'll do.
Yeah. And you know it's bad when CNN now has censored his brother from conversating or having interviews with him, because other stations are playing that original interview of those two together, and it was like they were doing a comedy show, and these people are dying in nursing homes while they're trying to build their character, build their profiles and imagery. And he's got the blackboard out every day, and they were saying, "Oh, that's so presidential." It was nauseating, because, like I said, I'm not a doctor.
It's an agenda that they put. Their propaganda. It's leftist propaganda, and I mean, listen, regardless of how you feel about someone, even what happened with Hurricane Katrina,
Right.
You have to. George W. Bush was the president. I was critical of him, being that I'm from here. He screwed up.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Governor of Louisiana, she screwed up, and even to some degree, Mayor Nagin, he screwed up. And Bush screwed up greatly. We had evidence. They knew it was going to be bad. He was talking with the reporters, and he got caught lying. But I mean, and what I see here, and I'm only going to say allegedly murdered or allegedly killed, because for legal purposes, and I also don't want to get censored. censored when you talk about vaccinations. Let it be clear too. Even on that aspect, I'm not a doctor myself. My father and my mother and even my brother, they're in the medical field, and they've told me about vaccines and so forth. And
okay.
So I know about vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer myself, but I agreed with you. Like, we just don't know the side effects of it, and that's kind of why I'm hesitant with it. Matter of fact, the NBA recently, they're trying to get those players to come out. I was trying to mention this earlier, but let me do it now. They were trying to get those players to come out and do a video or ad to encourage more people to take the vaccine. And a lot of them do not want to do that. Meta World Peace was even talking about that, Ron Artest, and they mentioned it on ESPN with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. But
what did Stephen A. say? What did Stephen A. say?
What did he say? He said he understood why people aren't going to take it because of the history that Black people have had with the government. But he says if he were presented with it, he would take it.
See the NBA. So what audience are you trying to reach when you call on the NBA players? This is once again the African American community. You didn't ask the hockey players, okay? You asked the NBA. This is really, our people got to wake up. I mean, I understand if you're fed bad information, but some of this is so blatantly obvious of what's going on, just as it was with James and some of these other things that have come out. But they're
not good, but they're saying they're not the players, and I'm shocked because the players.
Yeah, that's great. No, that part. Yeah, I should. Yeah, yes, I'm very happy about that. But
saying they don't want to do it.
You tried to use them though. You try. Who is this? This is this new world order. This antichrist spirit. Actually, what it is working through these governmental people that are trying to create a world order. But they say, how do we get African Americans to take it? Oh, let's get the NBA players. I mean, next thing they start rolling out actresses and actors. Tavis Smiley will be next, and somebody else of that magnitude.
Well, last week, Como had a rap video up. Shawn saw it of It was not Run, but DMC doing a rap to get people out to get vaccinated.
And what segment of the community are you trying to reach?
I got one better. This is DMC now.
Oh, God.
I mean, that was if it was 1985, okay, but now.
Oh, I see what you said. Right. Okay.
Shawn, being that he's from New York, he when I was playing it to him, he just put his head down.
We sit here. You laugh at it because you don't want to cry. We need an awakening bad. I mean, and we have children, and our children are watching us, how we respond to these things. But I have hope that it'll change. But some of the tactics are so visibly obvious to the naked eye that we should be getting a greater response of outrage, just like this curriculum that's coming in New Jersey down to kindergarten, just like the freedom. They have a bill here that we've been fighting, Freedom Reproductive Act, where basically you can kill the child with impunity if the child survives the abortion. I understand why women make the choice. I understand the thinking and everything, because the system pushes you to make the choice. The system has made it so that it's an elective procedure that will help your future. I understand all that, but where the point of conscience and the point of the sense of the sanctity of life and humanity, they're pushing bills, and Murphy's pushing this, and his wife, unbelievably, to the point where they're asking. It was Albert Schweitzer who said, never surrender your conscience, even if the state demands it.
Right. Who's Murphy? You said Murphy and his wife are pushing this. Who's Murphy?
I'm sorry. Phil Murphy is our governor.
Okay.
Who imitates Como. I think that he's going to get it too, and I hope I can facilitate that in some way, because he did the same thing. He did the same thing here in Jersey. Wolf over there. Shawn mentioned somebody. I got
Gretchen Whitmer.
Richard, who's that from? Where's he from?
Michigan.
Okay. Oh, Michigan. Oh gosh, she's scary. Hate to be. If I was walking in the alley, she was coming down. Turn around the next way. But Wolf of Pennsylvania, they got this cabal, and this is what we're going to do. And initially, they were trying to create the crisis. Murphy tried to shake Trump down for money because of our budget here, the deficit here, the pension that's failing. So he was trying to get money for COVID, where that money was going to somehow bail Jersey out and probably have another yacht someplace for him and his boys or whatever. But we're just corrupt. We need an awakening. And from this conversation, I think I have saw that indeed it's up for the parents to protect the children, the hearts of the fathers towards the children, and children towards the fathers. We have to stand up and say we want to protect the future of our children in education. The genocide of the mind is going on in the public school systems. How do you really think if they wanted to stop the weekend killings in Chicago, you couldn't stop that? You ejected, which then tells me then you're involved in it. You're profiting from it. So we as parents have to say that indeed we have to expose, point out, yeah, it's going to be challenging because when you go after somebody's welfare, they're going to come after you, and they're going to threaten you. But there's such a thing as a future that we're supposed to fight for, not my personal future, my grandchildren's future, my sons and daughters' future. We got to do it, and we have to challenge the status quo. And he should hang from the gallows. Now, I'm not saying this viciously, but in a sense, Andrew Cuomo, as you said, with total disregard for the lives of those people, did it, okay, and denounced or just denied the integrity of the nursing home industry, who pleaded with him not to do it because they knew what was going to happen. Now, see, at this point, I don't know if I'm going to let you do that. I'm not going to live with that. You're going to take me out in handcuffs because I know what's going to happen. That I'm going to invoke death on persons that probably would have lived, but because you're bringing the disease in that was that it was highly contagious to people who were highly vulnerable.
Yeah,
he should pay.
Most definitely. I mean, look, they spent in where I was critical, and Shawn, you've pointed this out, where I was critical with regards to the Democrats and how they acted with Donald Trump in the middle of a crisis. You're supposed to put all of that aside.
Yeah.
When your country, when the family is being attacked, it's like what I saw an episode of The New Dallas before JR passed, and Bobby was facing. I like to do this analogy, but when Bobby was facing criminal charges for murder, and John Ross asked JR, "Well, maybe we can use this to try and get our shares in UN Global," and even JR Ewing said, "You still got a lot to learn, boy. You don't take it as at war. When a family is under attack, you unite."
Yes.
When something like that, you do what's best for your constituents, for your people, and
go back to the politics later.
Right. Cuomo is doing, by this, if this all is, and I take it to be true, he's done. He ought to be recalled, just like they're trying to do in New York in California with
Gavin,
governor of California.
They're just for safety signatures. He didn't think they would do it. He didn't think they would be able to challenge it. Now, do you see his demeanor now and the things he's trying to do now?
Well, you see his demeanor now, but what's interesting too is that Biden is saying that he's against it, and the only reason why is because he knows this is the guy that's going to push their agenda.
The whole thing is that Biden is against it because he knows that was the start of the bloodbath that's going to come. Because I see this coming for them, and it's like if they get this recall, it's going to start a domino effect, and that's going to be the end of the Democratic Party's agenda.
And listen, even this thing about we're talking about court cases, my conversations with Judge Joe Brown, too. There is still a pending criminal as well as grand jury proceeding with regards to Hunter Biden.
Oh, please!
Yeah, that stuff is still.
And remember, Giuliani has a copy of whatever's on that computer that he gave to the FBI. I wouldn't, you just can't trust. And you're right. The history of the FBI. I mean, the same thing. I think it was Eisenhower said about the CIA. I should have never started this. We got problems in this country that are a lot bigger than I really thought were. What has come out in the last year, really after this election, even shows you the depth of the corruption in both parties is far more than anybody imagined. But I got to believe that God
over a stimulus check. I mean, 1,400 versus 600 and 2,000, and I mean these all being decided by millionaires over money that is your money.
Elitists, and that's what people have to see this as. But on a certain level, they're behind closed doors cutting deals. It's not Republican versus Democrat. That's another level with that hierarchy. Chuck Schumer, I'm sure, is good friends with Mitch McConnell, and they may put on that adversarial act in front of us, but they're cutting deals like crazy, and they know how to do it. They know how to punch him and let him punch back. But there's certain things they've decided that you're going to get this and I'm going to get that. And that's all that they're interested in. Man, when I found out the wealth that McConnell receives from China, I was stunned. I said,
well, he's worth $22 million, but hell, Nancy Pelosi is worth $150 million. She had that from her husband.
Yeah, she had that going in though, but the thing about it, they want more. They want more. I mean, when's enough? I mean, come on. I mean, when do you want to be the servant to the people? I mean, that homeless situation in San Francisco, I went on tour, Catholic priest, we were talking before the march last year. And he said, well, we got some time. And the homeless situation came up. He said, oh, no, that's true. That's true that they're using hoses to wash the waste down steps every morning. I said, what? And then he said, I'll take you. I'll show you. Oh, man. I mean, man, it was eye-opening. And then I said, well, she's sitting up here in this gated community, and they're not that far from where she's at. She has to be. I mean, in other words, you're aware of this. This is your city. You got to do. There's something. Don't tell me there's something that cannot be done with the money, the waste, the millions of dollars we give other places, as my brother was talking about, and our grid lies waste. The homeless situation is increasing. There's somebody with another agenda that's being elected that is not for the well-being of the people that voted for them.
Most definitely. Well, gentlemen, it's been almost 2 hours, and I'm ready to wrap some things up. And I appreciate both of you, Pastor Childress and Shawn, for being on. Shawn, if you want to do a plug-in right now, please do so.
Well, I've got a lot of great books on Amazon right now. And with it being Black History Month, there's a lot of great positive Black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint you can pick up, like John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, ISIS, The Main Event, and the upcoming 2021 books like John Haynes, Taking Care of Business, and ISIS, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. And I also have Eternal Night and The Man Crisis on Amazon.com. So if you could head over to Amazon.com and pick up some of that great positive Black fiction, and those men's issues books, I greatly appreciate it, because a lot of that is great reading, and it's a great way to start and continue celebrating Black History Month.
Most definitely. Pastor Childress, of course, you have your website, blackgenocide.org. I all encourage you to watch that documentary. Was it Mafa 21?
Yes.
Pastor Childress was a part of. I believe it's somewhere, may still be on YouTube somewhere.
Yes, still on YouTube. We even have a little 16, 17-minute documentary that PBS actually did on us. It should have been longer, but they couldn't create the narrative they wanted once finding the truth. I was surprised they even published it, but that was a couple years ago, PBS. And I got a little cameo role. Someone just told me recently, and oh man, what's my man? He's on TV. I can't even think of his name right now, but he produced it. What was that?
WandaVision?
No.
It's a joke, Pastor. It's a joke.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. You know, we old heads miss some stuff. But anyway, it was a good documentary on the black conservative experience. I'm looking at his face and I cannot call his name, and I should know it, but I haven't seen the complete movie. But there's some good stuff coming out right now to help. Oh, did you see Mike Lindell's Absolute Proof? If you didn't, I'm going to send you the link, and just take when you got some.
Mike Lindell is the My Pillow CEO.
Yes. He's also a very strong Christian, and you know, he's wealthy now. He was a crack dealer, and you know, he tells a story which is very profound and encouraging. But when you have that type of money, you're able to do the investigation. And it's beginning to take off now. It's going to be very fascinating in these next 21 days, I think. You know, as far as some of the cases that didn't get through, very likely may be getting through. It's going to be very interesting in the United States. Very interesting.
Shout out to First Lady Childress and also Miss Lois. I think those are people in your members of your congregation, of your flock. They were actually in the waiting in the
I told them 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So anyone who's hung out,
and I think I didn't add them to the screen because I didn't add them to the screen, but they were able to listen. If they were in here, they could hear us talk. So that's good. And shout out to all of you ladies and gentlemen who have tuned in. All the people in the chat. What's up, Purple Knight? Daniel Wallace, what's up, bro? Thank you for tuning in. DJ B-Side, as always, it's a pleasure to see you. Rosalind, she is from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was when you talked about Cuomo, she said, stick a fork in him, he's done. Mr. X, Computer Robots, Code Crow. Yeah, all of you guys, thank y'all for tuning in. I want to ask everybody too, and Mr. X said something very interesting. Transhumanism is the goal, according to Young Pharaoh. That is something that they are pushing, where they want to merge people with robots and machines, like what you see in Terminator.
They're there.
They're already. I mean, that's part of this transgender thing. Is just the tip of the iceberg. It's deeper than that. Because even Sigmund Freud said himself that there were at least over 100 sexual orientations, if I'm not mistaken. Like he said, it's more, even an LGBTQ acronym, it's actually more than that.
Yes.
It's LGBTQI.
They need right there for me.
Right. So it's very interesting. But I want to ask everybody, please, because this is not, first off, thank you to my 800 subscribers. We reached a milestone. I'm not there yet to Shawn. Of course, I'm trying to get like him because Shawn's got like 11 to 12,000 subscribers, but we're getting there slowly. And with your encouragement, the channel is not monetized. So if anybody would like to donate to the Cash App, it's right there. GavinRichardEsq, the Google Pay, gavin.grich1@gmail.com, or even PayPal, which is my same email. You can also support me at my Patreon, which is the same YouTube name, gboot2786. I will start adding more videos on there. And in fact, I'm going to do another video on Patreon that I will upload, why it's important that we have other avenues and channels open aside from YouTube and Twitter, because the chopping block is real. People are being separate. What if you're especially, and I don't even think you just have to be conservative. If you're even pro-black and you say things that go against the narrative, because I have several friends who have had their channels. I mean, Shawn has been on a shadow ban for many of the stuff he said for years. You know, and Shawn, he shoots from the hip. He speaks straight. I know of Queen Ahmadiyya Shakur, who's going through things. So it's good if you guys can support and to keep us going further, because eventually, you know, we would like to own. We talk about black empowerment and black economics, but we don't support each other. And I think it's important that we do that so we can build things, because eventually I would love to have I would love to have a studio, like a full studio. And we're talking about where we could have black content creators there. Also a studio where there's a music room to be done. Those are things I think of. I mean, I had a conversation with Omar Tyree out of Philadelphia. He's a businessman. He wants to create ventures and, you know, bring back Philadelphia soul. People are going to Atlanta to make music, but hey, back in the 70s, Philadelphia was a top place to do soul music. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass, Billy Paul, the Stylistics, the Delphonics.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I can go on. Linda, I mean, who else? The Spinners, all of those people that came out of that. Mother, father, sister, brother. So let's push and move forward and support one another, because if we're getting tired of YouTube, then we got to grow from YouTube. If we're tired of Facebook, we got to grow from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, guys, that's it for me. Computer Robot says he can't wait for your live stream tomorrow, Shawn.
Yeah. I'm going to be talking about black man working and why everybody out here in white supremacy is against the black man working. So it's about BMW, black man working.
Okay. And y'all support Shawn. Subscribe to his channel, Shawn James. I also have a backup channel, Gavin Richard, you can subscribe to as well. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been a great show tonight. Great talking it up with y'all. This has been another edition of Gavin Richard Presents here on channel GBoo2786. Gavin Richard on Facebook and YouTube, and on GavinRich2786 on Twitter. You guys can follow me there. I will drop some new there. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all, Shawn. Thank you, Reverend Childress, for joining me, and your church family as well, Pastor. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. See you guys around.
Good night, guys. Thank you.